when was the last time that you went through like a period of not writing anything?
I mean, when I was touring, playing bass for the Japanese House last year, I probably wasn't writing very much. I mean, I'd always, if there was like a piano at the venue, or I'd be playing guitar, so I'd be like, I'm always writing little bits here and there. I think the periods when, away doing that kind of thing and travelling is probably when I'm getting the least done, I guess. But it's also productive because you save up on all of those experiences, and then it's kind of like saving up for when you get home, I guess.
And you kind of just channel them into the music, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, not super directly, I guess, or consciously, but I think there's just a certain release that comes around when you actually have the opportunity to sit down and properly write something or record something again. I guess you're just kind of, raring to go.
What's that feeling like then when you come off a tour and you haven't written in a while and you start to get back into it? Do you feel like you need to, is there a need, is the need stronger then to write, or?
I guess it feels like, especially in the case of like last year, for example, when I was traveling a lot, I guess there is a certain feeling of release and like also sort of pent up, whole host of experiences, and that are not necessarily like that you explicitly, or I guess some people would explicitly be like, I'm going to write about this experience, but just kind of exiting a certain phase, and in the case of traveling, quite a hectic, mad phase of life, and then coming back to stillness is like, I guess that gives a feeling of like wanting to release something, and also just having the opportunity to sit around and play again. So that combination of things usually just gives way to like a lot of songs.
Had you travelled much before last year?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, I've been playing with Amber of the Japanese House for like 3 years now. Last year was the first year when it was really constant. So we did bits and bobs here and there, and I played for like another band as well, which we went to America with. So I've travelled a fair amount, but nothing compared to what it was like last year.
Was it a hard adjustment then when you first started? Or had you kind of eased into it over the years, like kind of slowly gotten more and more used to it? Or what was it like when you first went on that kind of massive tour?
I mean, I guess I had experienced it to a certain degree, with a few periods here and there where it was quite busy with other projects. So I'd kind of sort of tested the waters. So it wasn't too hard to adjust, I guess. I mean, there were definitely times when it was trying, as it was for everyone traveling, I guess. But no, I think for the most part, I really enjoyed it. But I don't know, maybe I was an absolute mess. I'm not sure.
I mean, I guess in hindsight, it was quite a well-timed tour as well. Like to have that opportunity to go and tour all over the world, like quite constantly for the first time.
I mean, especially given how impossible it is to do now.
It's hard to tell when the next opportunity for something like that's going to come along. Had you planned then this year to put out a second record, or was that something that kind of came from the circumstances that we found ourselves in?
It was something I had planned. I think it was probably accelerated by the circumstance, maybe. Although, not really, because actually I was, at the time when lockdown occurred, I was originally planning on doing it at a studio, and I was looking into booking that in. So I think it would have kind of happened about as quickly as it has, maybe regardless. But I mean, I suppose it was just fortuitous in terms of I ended up doing it at home, the upcoming album, and just had a lot of time to focus on it, I guess, and get everything together for it.
Was Waltz always going to be the third album? Like the way, the kind of, I mean, like the style of it, and the way that it's just kind of more return to something more stripped back, I guess, kind of piano and vocal style of presentation. Was that always going to be the third record for you, or?
I don't know if I knew it was necessarily going to be the third one, but it was always going to be one that I was going to do. Like, I've wanted to do just a piano and vocal record for quite a while now. And I think I was a bit umming and ahhing about like when exactly when it would happen. But I just felt like this was a good moment to do it for a few reasons, I suppose.
I guess emotionally as well, it lines up quite nicely with where we are at the moment, and it's a slightly more, I don't know, solitary record compared to the previous ones in some ways, and that kind of fits in quite nicely with where we've been the last few months.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's literally just voice and piano for the most part. Some of the songs were written during the sort of recording process as well, so like some of them really are from that time. So I think there's a lot of that isolation in it.
I remember when we spoke back at was it end of March? Okay, it was right as things were starting to kick off, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it must have been about end of March.
You were doing a songwriting thing with your flatmate, where you were both like you had a challenge to kind of write a song each day.
Yeah.
Did that bleed into this at all? Did that kind of flow into the writing process for some of the songs on this record, or?
Yeah, absolutely. The opening track of the album was the first one of those song challenges that we did. That's the only one that came from that thing that we were doing. But yeah, it's the first track on there.
That's fascinating that it was the first one that was the one that's ended up on the record.
Yeah, I was unsure about the task in general. It was my housemate Martin, whose artist name is MT Hadley, and yeah, he suggested doing this daily songwriting exercise because we both living together and we both make music, so it was just something to kind of keep the cogs turning. And like, I was kind of skeptical about it at first, but it turned out to be a really good idea. And yeah, he would choose a chord, and they'd often be. He's a bit of a jazzier guy than I am. Well, he's definitely jazzier than I am. So he'd hit some chords that I'd never really played before. So it was quite inspiring because I'd go to the piano and play this chord, and then I'd sort of just follow where this new chord would take me. But yeah, that was the first exercise was the opening track.
Had you ever done anything else like that? Set yourself a challenge in that manner, in that kind of way?
No, I don't think so. No, I guess because I feel like I write quite a lot anyway. I've never felt the necessity to kind of make it like a daily thing. But yeah, no, I don't think I'd ever done something like that before. But it was really cool. I might try and bring it back at some point because we did it for like a month or something like that, I think.
What was like the rhythm of your workflow? Like over lockdown, was it quite consistent, or how much were you kind of typically writing? Yeah,
fairly consistent. I guess I kind of had different things to be working on and different breakthroughs at various points. I mean, at the beginning of lockdown, I just released the album, so I was kind of thinking about that and doing like a few live streams, playing those songs and stuff. And I was kind of had a little brief period of living in that era, and then just moved on to the piano thing, which took up a fair amount of time and effort. And then now I have this studio space a couple of nights a week near where I live, and that's been a real breakthrough. So that's like kind of ramped up the work flu. Got flu on the brain. This viral age. Yeah, that kind of ramped things up. That's been a massive breakthrough. And then slowly being able to I've been able to get in the studio with a couple of other friends to work on a couple of bits. So yeah, it's been pretty consistent, which I'm quite happy about.
Is this the first time you've had a studio space? Is that a first time kind of having a place to call your own like that that's separate from your home?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like a studio share between other people, and I have like a couple of nights a week, but because it's so close to where I live and because I really make the most of it, like I come at 6 p.m. and leave at like 2 or 3 in the morning, so it's kind of like a full working day. So I feel like I'm here quite a lot. But yeah, it's the first time I've had that exterior zone to come to regularly, at least. And it's been a real blessing.
Has it affected the way you are creating things? How's your kind of mindset like when you head into that studio as opposed to writing at home?
It's definitely affected the way I write things, partly just because there's like some different things lying around. Like there's a keyboard here that's just got an infinite amount of sounds and like rhythms, and it's just a really good place to start. Yeah, there's just like a few things here that I wouldn't have normally have access to, and sometimes it just takes one piece of equipment to kind of open up a whole like box of inspiration.
I mean, this record's evidence of that.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean this was like, oh, you mean the piano record? Or?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this I've kind of gained this place after that, so it's kind of, this is more the next stuff that will be coming from this room. But yeah, no, I don't know, in terms of the space, I think it still it varies. So, so there are definitely times when I come in and I'm not really feeling it, but I think just having the short walk from your house to a separate space, and also the knowledge that you're there to kind of make use of the time and do it, just helps you snap out of those kinds of modes sometimes, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I think you just put that slight pressure on yourself and that slight restriction of, so you have to get a song done by a certain time. Your body, I think, subconsciously puts you into fight mode, and you kind of get through it and you do it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of the time I'm just like very consciously excited to be here, which is a good feeling. And then even in the times where I'm like a little like, not in the best of moods, I'll still, like you say, just go into
some kind of mode where you coast through it and you still come out with something. So yeah, it's been totally total breakthrough, definitely.
Like that excitement, when you first get in there, was that the same when you moved to London? Did you kind of feel similar excitement about being in a new city? And if so, how did that, kind of go on and affect the music you were making at the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I moved to London quite a long time ago for uni. Initially, I had a collaborative band back then, and yeah, I think we were quite excited to be in London and kind of going for it here at that time. And then, yeah, I kind of had some time away again. So now, recently, it kind of feels like I've kind of moved back. And that's also been, and I feel like part of the reason that I ended up deciding to commit to staying in London for the foreseeable was to really focus on the music stuff. So I think there's something quite motivational about being in London and knowing that like that was a big part of why I wanted to be here, and also having a network of friends and musicians and collaborators. So yeah, I definitely feel like it's a motivational place to be for music for me. Yeah.
Was it Berlin you grew up in, or whereabout did you grow up?
So I was born in Berlin and moved to Burgess Hill in West Sussex when I was 6, and then kind of grew up there, and then moved to London for uni, and then kind of bounced back between Berlin and London a bit over the last few years.
What was it that drew you back to Berlin? Like over the last few years?
Well, initially I was just moving home because my parents lived there. I was touring with another band, and I'd been living in London for 4 years, I guess, and it just wasn't really feasible to be touring and also be living in London. So initially I was just kind of moving home.
I imagine they're quite different cultures. How do they kind of differ? The two cities.
Yeah,
I've never been to Berlin.
It's a great place. I really love it. I just got back from there yesterday. Just went back for a week, which was really nice to see the family and friends. Felt like a good time to go. But yeah, it's always interesting comparing the two atmospheres. They're definitely quite different. I think Berlin's physically there's just a lot more space. Everything's a bit more relaxed. Yeah, just a bit more of a gentle vibe compared to the sort of stress of London. Yeah, I guess it's a bit slower.
Quite a good place to go at the moment then, probably, with everything that's kind of going on in the world, just to kind of get away from it for a wee bit and reset, almost recharge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely felt like a nice bit of a respite from the atmosphere of London. But yeah, no, it's a great place.
So how old were you when you learned to play the piano then?
Well, I've never had piano lessons. I just kind of picked things up from friends, and then, I mean, I guess I properly started playing a bit more regularly when my brother got my mum a piano for, I think it was a birthday, when I was about maybe like 15 or something. So we had one in the house, which is the same one's now in my room, which I recorded the album on. Technically I've been playing for absolutely ages, like 13 years or something, but without really ever learning like formally. But that's the same with all of the instruments I play.
What was the first instrument you fell in love with?
Probably guitar. I mean, my sister and I played violin before, and I did enjoy that. Yeah, I guess it was guitar. I just remember there was one. I used to sort of turn the violin around and like play a guitar. There was also one moment that I remember that was probably like the falling in love moment. Because my friend, I think I was in like year 6 or something, and my friend had a what do you have? I don't know, just like a sort of like Argos guitar, but electric guitar. He let me have a go on it, and I didn't really understand how stuff worked, and I guess the distortion setting was on, and I played it, and I was just like, what? Like, I didn't realize that. I thought you had to be really good at guitar for it to like make that sound, and then it came out like it was just like sounded like a rock song, just me like just playing the strings, and I was like, oh my god, I'm making this noise, and that was when I was like, okay, cool,
hooked.
I'm on board with this.
How old did you say you were then? What do you say, year 6?
Yeah, I guess I was probably about 10. I might have been in year 5. I don't know.
That's quite young to start getting into an instrument like that.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty young. Yeah.
Were you playing violin prior to that?
Yeah, I have a twin sister, and we were learning. We took violin lessons between the ages of like 7 and 11, and so to the end of primary school. But then I think it was I was going to continue learning, but they just didn't have. I couldn't get lessons at my school, for like the school that I moved to for secondary school. So, and that was kind of at the time where I was like overlapping with guitar anyway. So I just kind of got stuck into guitar instead.
What sort of effect do you think, beginning music so early and starting to learn an instrument so early then had upon, where you are now and where you kind of went in the years following that?
I just guess obviously time-wise, it's just afforded me more experiences at like a younger age, musical experiences. Yeah, got started fairly young, so yeah, I guess I kind of figured out what I liked about playing music quite early on, and then I like to think I've progressed over those many, many years. But it's weird when I think back to the kind of stuff that I used to write and play when I was really young, and actually thinking about it is not that different to the stuff I'm doing now. Yeah, it allows you to sort of shape your feeling of playing quite early on, which is maybe a cool thing. And I guess when you're that age as well, you have there's a lot of bad things about making music when you're that age that are really awful and cringy because you're a teenager. But I guess you also have you take an approach with it that's quite not very thought out, and I guess you kind of just really do it for the love of it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess there's something nice about having a musical passion at that age.
There's an innocence about it, I think, a little bit when you're that young and you're in love with it in that way.
Yeah, I guess so. And also, I mean, probably to be fair, probably the biggest factor is just time. If people try and pick up an instrument later in their lives, it's just harder to do, isn't it? You've got life stuff going on. So I feel like the younger you are when you start playing music, the better, really, because you've just got time to play every day.
Were you consciously listening to music when you started playing the violin at age 7, or did that come later on?
Seeking out certain things, yeah. I think during the time that I was playing violin, that started to happen. I guess when I was 7 or 8, I had early experience of buying a pop single or whatever. As I got into double figures, I was getting into metal and rock stuff, and that's when I think it was when I got into heavier music that I really started to develop an interest in it, and would seek it out and look for certain things and start buying albums and things like that.
It's interesting that I never realised you were a metalhead.
I was for a time, yeah.
You can hear a little bit of that in what's the track in the second album? Is it The Empty Party?
Yeah.
That they absolutely the thrashing of it. You can kind of hear that element carrying in.
Yeah, there's a bit of heavier stuff on that album, I guess. Yeah, and I still really like heavy music as well. But yeah, I think that's where I started to develop a more conscious interest in it. Yeah.
How did that progress in the years following? Did you go through a variety of genres that you were interested in? Or were you kind of growing up?
Yeah, definitely. I think that time, the time between the ages of 10 and 14, 15 was a really rapid journey of getting into different types of music, I guess, because I used to go to the skatepark in the town that I lived in. Actually, both of my sort of big musical interests of my early teens, and yeah, that period was started from the skatepark. For example, with the metal thing, my friend just made me loads of CDs, burnt loads of CDs of metal albums in exchange, because I'd lent him my skateboard for a while. And I befriended another guy, who was way older than me at the skatepark, who I don't even know how we got onto it, but this was a couple of years later when I was 12 or 13, and he got me into alternative stuff, 80s alternative music, The Cure and the Smiths and New Order and stuff like that. He used to make me compilation CDs, and I developed a specific interest in the Cure, and he made me Cure compilations. It was amazing. I don't really know how it happened, but we must have somehow I guess maybe I was playing guitar at the time. Yeah, I just somehow managed to get this source of all this music that I still really, really love.
It's kind of the best age because your mind just keeps getting blown by all these different artists, because you've never heard them before, and you just keep discovering more and more classic and masters at the various genres.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, like you say, mind blowing time.
Do you think that the way you were connecting with other people there as well, how it was a tool for kind of friendship, was that part of what drew you to music?
Maybe. That's a good question. So I think I'm quite a sociable person. I do like hanging out. Maybe subconsciously, probably. There's so much. The way I discovered it was so socially based, and obviously there's just such a social aspect to once you start playing gigs. And yeah, I guess maybe I liked how those things like met up. Yeah, I don't think would have been like a very conscious thing, but yeah.
I guess it's kind of evolved now in the way that people, share songs on their Instagram stories or whatever. It's migrated into social media. That kind of thing. Used to be people giving you tapes, like mixtapes and stuff with different things on it. It's kind of been integrated into the culture and how we operate now.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose people still make each other playlists and things like that from time to time.
Do you quite often share with other people?
Yeah, definitely. Like amongst friends, there's a lot of music sharing that goes on. Yeah, it's very different now because I think, when someone sends you like a Spotify link on WhatsApp, or you send someone else a Spotify link to a track, just like one track, I think it's still a nice thing. And I think, most of the time you listen to it and enjoy it. I guess back in those days when it was like people were burning you discs and writing by hand the track lists on them and stuff like that, it was like, it felt like this more sacred thing, and you'd really feel like you'd been given this gift that you needed to respect and enjoy. So I guess it's a bit different now.
There's a real human connection there, isn't there, when it comes to tapes? And like you're saying, there with like the handwritten and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of mad if you think about it now. I mean, I guess people still do it now when it's like maybe like a romantic gesture, or like, I don't know. I guess some people would just still make the effort to do that, but I guess back then it was like just much more standard. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's probably part of what's playing into the vinyl thing as well. People wanting that kind of physical thing, that connection where you can go into a record store with your friend and browse for ages, and just, it's kind of making it more of an experience, isn't it? It's adding another layer to it and to the connection with the music.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely having that like physical and visual element to it makes it easier to enjoy and share. And it's cool that like vinyl is such a booming industry, I guess.
I really like the visual element to, the run of singles you've been putting out ahead of this new record. Where are those photographs taken from? Because they have a real kind of intimacy about them that is quite nicely kind of mirrored in the music.
Oh, thanks. They were mostly taken when I was traveling, touring with the Japanese house playing bass for Amber. I think they were mostly taken during that. Some of them are like phone pictures and some of them are film camera pictures. But yeah, they were mostly taken last year, kind of, on that whole tour, and then bits of being at home. But yeah, it was basically a bit of a document of last year.
What was kind of feeling the choice between which picture you were going for? Why did you choose those kind of certain ones?
I don't know, I guess it was just a case of, I guess I knew that I had quite a few pictures saved up, and then I had this selection of songs, and it was kind of just a case of going through the songs and then also going through the photo bank and then kind of matching them up the best I could, really. And there happened to be quite a few that just worked really well. Yeah, so it was basically just a sort of, like that sort of process of like which ones fit together.
Do you think there is a link between imagery and music in any way? What kind of connects it?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely a connection between visual and sound, I guess. I was talking to my housemate about this last night, and we were talking about music videos, the sort of role that they play. And if I think about, breaks off on a tangent from your question, but in terms of as a consumer of music, like I think having that visual element does really help, like ground it, and like it helps with like associating it with a certain thing and sort of solidifying it in your mind. Whether it's like a music video or like an album cover, like, if you have like an album cover of one of your favorite albums, you can't help but see the music as having the colors of that album, the artwork, Yeah, I don't know. In terms of when I'm writing, yeah, it's not a lot of like conscious visuals, but it comes into it sometimes. Like sometimes, I guess especially when you start writing lyrics, you see things a bit more. Occasionally there'll be like a sound that makes you think of a certain visual, like action, and you start to think about that. So yeah, I think it does play into the writing, but probably not nearly as much as some other people, I'm sure.
It's interesting what you're saying there about the album covers and the way you kind of associate it, because I hadn't thought about it before, but in relation to both of the last two records you've put out, and the first to an extent, there's they echo, the kind of tone of the album.
Oh, I'm glad.
Like the kind of intimacy of the first one with that photography on the balcony, dining alone the second one, where it's this slightly more expansive record, kind of going in different directions, and you have that very striking kind of image on the cover that's a bit more constructed, like it's a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And then this new one, taking it back to basics, but just you and the piano, and it's a black and white photograph of yourself. They link up in that way. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I do definitely put a lot of thought into how especially with an album cover, like how the image fits with the record. But yeah, I think that's what I was going for with each of those things. Yeah, it's fun. Like it's a fun thing to think about. You know, it's just a different angle to look at the whole project at, I guess. Once you have a certain amount of songs, you start thinking about that, and it helps you kind of consolidate the feeling of the album. You know, once you have like an image in mind, it kind of helps tie everything together. So yeah, I think they definitely play off each other.
How did that work for this upcoming record? At what point did you stop viewing them as individual tracks and start looking at them as a body of work in an album?
Like the songs on the album actually span quite a big variant of time. Like there's some stuff that I wrote on there like a very long time ago, and there's some, you know, like with the songwriting challenge one, that was written very recently, and a couple of others were written very recently. Like I said, I knew for a while that I wanted to do a piano album, so it was kind of a case of knowing that I wanted to do the piano album, having a sort of, and this is how it usually works with the other albums I've done as well, is having a sort of revolving track list that kind of changes over the course of time that you're thinking about doing it, and then by the time that you've got it all together, you just kind of left with the one that makes the most sense and fits. So yeah, it's quite a gradual coming together of like the songs, and then it coming together as a full thing.
The way that you had this piano album in your head for a while and you knew you wanted to make a record like that, do you have other albums in your head as well, and certain things that you think, I want to explore that in a record one day? Like almost like a bucket list of things you want to do with your music and your voice.
Yeah, I think so. Especially recently, I'm usually thinking quite far ahead with things. So there's definitely a few things I want to do. I'm working on a project that's more like a collaboration with another friend, which is going to be much more electronic and maybe a bit more modern and poppy, which is going to be fun. Yeah, I want to also incorporate a bit of that into my own music, and I've got an idea for an album where I just want to have it be like kind of the opposite of that, and just be really a very acoustic, like richly produced, sort of very like earthy sounding album. Yeah, I definitely want to try a lot of different things. So it's gonna be fun to see how all of those ideas like materialize and how they fit together and stuff.
Yeah, I think as well, like you said, that you're thinking so far ahead, you can then almost utilize that fact to connect not just the songs on the albums, but the albums themselves. You can then kind of, you know, if you're viewing everything as part of this one kind of span, you can link it up a bit easier and have elements that carry through from record to record quite consciously.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that is an advantage of like thinking like that, I guess. Like it's not like I'm really regimented about like this has to be this and then that has to be that, but things do sort of link up and then come together and then get switched around. But yeah, I guess there's something to be said for kind of thinking about the long game. I do like the idea of, you know, as like a music fan, I like the idea of a sort of a varied and rich back catalogue, and I guess that's just the exciting thing, is kind of building towards having one of those. For me, that's going to hopefully include trying a lot of different things.
What sort of aspects of your personality do you think are present in this piano record that aren't in the others, or might not even be present in future records? Is it kind of tapping into a different side of yourself in some way?
Yeah, maybe there's certain things. I mean, I guess like the first track being, there's a couple of tracks that were written during like the initial sort of lockdown phase, so I'm sure that feeds into it.
Does isolation have a place in creativity, even just outside the lockdown?
Oh yeah, massively. I think I feel the most creative and like free, I guess, when I'm just completely on my own, which I think is true of a lot of writers, I guess. Yeah, I think there's something quite freeing about just being totally in your own zone when you're creating something.
How's that affected when you bring someone like Louis Milburn in then to help you with the last record? How does that kind of play into that idea of you being your most creative on your own? What does he kind of add to it and change about it?
I guess it's kind of like different stages of the process. Like I really like collaborating with other people on music, definitely, but I think it's more just the initial like spark phase when you're kind of reeling off ideas and sort of getting something out of nowhere. That's often happens when you're by yourself. But then when it comes to like fleshing things out and producing things and revisiting things and just like kind of getting the juice out of the songs. That's when the more of the collaboration stuff comes in, I guess.
I guess it helps with the perspective when it comes to producing a record as well. Like you kind of have someone else to bounce things off of and a sounding board.
Definitely, yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah, I always appreciate that.
Do you send things off to friends as well? Or is it quite an insular process when you're working on an album, or do you have other people that you trust that you'll run things past and see their thoughts?
No, yeah, definitely. I definitely send stuff to friends. Yeah, just lucky to know a lot of friends that like whose tastes I really like, and yeah, I think it's a really really good sounding board to. I mean, arguably, it's I do try to send things also to people that I don't know that well, because that's also a good feedback. Yeah, I think it's good to send to friends as well, because hopefully they'll be like honest with you. It's hard, isn't it? Because you're like. You've always got a kind of. I think it's pretty easy to like gauge people's feedback, and it kind of varies in excitement and depending on certain songs and like certain people like different things. So I think you can kind of collate the feedback and kind of get a bit of a vibe of what the reaction is. But yeah, sorry, in answer to your question, that's definitely something I do.
Have you noticed any patterns, or are there any differences that there tends to be when it comes to the feedback you get from people that you trust and that you know really well, and the people that you don't know so well that you maybe send the songs to see their thoughts?
I guess it's only really if I'm sending it to people that, I guess the only time I really send it to people that I don't know is when I'm trying to potentially reach out to someone that I maybe want to work with on it or whatever in terms of release, which isn't that often. And I guess when you're kind of doing that, it's not, you don't get very like rich feedback from those people anyway. Yeah, I guess the comparison would be that when it's someone you're probably likely to get a bit more detail. Yeah, which is cool.
Do you remember the first time when you shared music with someone and you performed, or you played someone a piece of music that you had written personally yourself?
I mean, I guess I would probably like, when I started playing guitar, I guess I would like show my mum things. Like when I learnt my first 3 or 4 chords or whatever, I like wrote a little thing and I would probably show her. That was probably like the really earliest experience of that. Yeah, I mean, I guess in those early days it was kind of when I started a band when I was like 13, and we'd have friends to come over to the band practices in my room. Yeah, probably quite an early experience of that, and then just playing little gigs in people's back gardens and youth centres and things. Yeah, things like that.
Did collaborating with people change the way you thought about music at that age? Once you kind of got into a band and you just stopped doing things on your own, you got into that space with other people and started working on music and performing music together?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, in that band, we were collaborating. It kind of became more collaborative as the years went on, and my friend Hassan, who we both wrote songs for like our old band, and that was a massive influence and learning process was just like writing together, and we'd kind of show each other music and vibe off of each other. So that's probably like the biggest example of like a collaboration that's kind of had an impact, and probably the earliest one, I guess. And then definitely as the years have gone by, like the more you make more music with more people, and you learn different things from different people, and I think collaborations, like you'll never stop gaining from doing that kind of thing, and like there's eternal value in the collaboration.
Do you learn different things from collaboration to what you learn when you're just writing by yourself, and what you learn from your own songwriting?
There's only so much that you can kind of get from. I mean, I guess there's when you stumble across something by yourself that you haven't done before, or that you haven't heard yourself do before, that's quite interesting, because you're like, this has come from me somehow. Yeah, it feels quite like, I don't know if lucid is the right word, but kind of without thought in a good way. But I guess when you're collaborating with someone, it's more like conversational, and you notice things they do and obviously like in a separate way, and you're kind of like, oh cool, like, well, how did you do that, or like why have you done that, and how does that work? You abstract from it a lot more, obviously, which is super cool.
I mean, I feel like when I'm collaborating with someone, when I'm sharing ideas, there's always a part of yourself that is slightly reserved, and it is hard to get past that bit of yourself that's thinking, what if this person hates my idea or doesn't like this, and you maybe slightly reserved in that way. How do you get past that, and how do you just be free like you are when you're writing songs by yourself and you don't care about what you think and you're just completely open and experimenting? How do you achieve that when you are with someone working in a room and collaborating?
I guess that part of it comes from just being really comfortable with the person that you're collaborating with. Like, I've only ever really collaborated with friends that I know quite well for the most part. Or, like, even if I don't, like, it happens if you're collaborating with someone new and there's quickly a realization that you agree on a lot of things and, yeah, you're kind of veering towards the same place. There's a freedom that you gain from that realization, I guess, and that stops self-consciousness a bit because you're kind of like, okay, we're on the same sort of vibe here.
I guess you're both kind of vulnerable in the same space as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because it is a place to kind of put yourself out there. Yeah, I guess it's just a comfortability thing with whoever you're working with.
If you're working with a friend in that space, how does that affect your relationship with them? How has it affected relationships with people that you've already built up that trust with before you've gone into the collaborative space? Does it have quite an impact, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the band I used to be in and with Hassan, like, we used to, we worked together for a very long time. It was such a wonderful thing, but you also used to get like very, very tense. That can happen, and it happens when I've been collaborating with other people as well. Like, it's such a cool thing, but it can also be a bit of a, I don't know, like quite a
hindrance, or?
Well, not a hindrance, but it can just be, when you are in that space together and you're like trying to get things across, and like maybe when you do disagree on things, or like the motivation or the ideas don't line up, then that can be quite frustrating and also can lead to some tensions.
Some bands can thrive on that though as well. Some seem to find a way to be able to take that kind of slight tension and maybe disagreements in the band and channel that into their creativity somehow.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's undeniable. I guess a lot of the great collaborations are, people that struggle to be in the same room as each other, but like when they get it together, it's amazing, and that's released through the music.
Yeah, maybe that's why so many like creative partnerships end in disaster. Like when you look at like Lennon and McCartney or whatever, it didn't speak for years after the Beatles ended, did they?
When you're that intensely connected to someone, it's not going to be easy always. It's just a lot going on there in those kinds of relationships, I guess.
I know you had in your head before you were making this record that you wanted to make a piano record. How did you know which songs though would lend themselves most nicely to this presentation as opposed to being developed into something for another of the records? How did you know which tracks would work in that domain? I
guess like a couple of them weren't originally written on piano. Like there's a song on there called Mind Tricks, which was like a sort of a full band fuzzy indie rock thing, but I often have played it like on piano and it kind of sounds like it was written on piano. That was that one, and then there's another one that's similar, like there's a full recording of it. So it wasn't even like, some of them actually exist in different forms but work on piano, and then the ones that were newer, I guess because I wrote them on piano and they kind of worked as just that stripped back setup, that's kind of how I knew that they would fit, because I'd heard it, I'd heard how it would sound, and it seemed to work.
When was Amherst written? Was that one of the newer ones, or had it been kicking around for a while?
It was originally, like, the voice note I had for it was written last summer, so like summer of 2019, when I just got my piano back in my room, but I was also about to move out, so I had this sort of fleeting month of having it in my room, and I was really enjoying it. I was living on Amherst Road, so I think that's why I had that. But also thinking about moving out, I guess, just the title was kind of on my mind. But yeah, it was just kind of like the chords and the vocal melody, and then I fleshed it out and added the synths and stuff. More recently when I was recording for the album.
Had you written any words when you first wrote that melody on the piano back last summer?
No, not really. No, it was just kind of the melody and some sort of half freestyled words. So it was only really when I was recording it that I was writing lyrics for it.
Man, because there's a real darkness to that song with some of the things, the bit where you speak about being like the tiniest cog in the machine, and there's a bit I think where you speak about like nobody like caring about dreams and stuff. What kind of a headspace were you in? Was that coming out of lockdown, or where was that kind of coming from for this?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I wrote it a bit into like that period of isolation. But I mean, I wasn't in like a.
You seemed quite positive when I spoke to you back in March.
Yeah, I don't think I was in like a super dark place when I was writing that or anything. But I guess maybe just the music of that song and the album in general was just like, it was very melancholic. So I guess it's just kind of what came out in response to the music.
With you being in such a positive headspace, we're always going to have negative emotions kicking about. So maybe, that's the kind of way that they were present at that time. You just channeled them through the music as opposed to them being present in other places.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And also, during that period of time, it was kind of like people probably went into a bit of a, people were faced with a new reality that they had to kind of get on with. So I guess the easiest way to deal with that is with a positive mindset. So I suppose that they kind of, people sort of adopted that approach, and I saw like benefits to like living in one place and living more calmly and having that break. But yeah, I guess there probably was, that time was also fraught with anxiety for everyone. So I suppose that's where it came from. I don't know. I mean, I'm slightly worried that it's just the thing that I do when I write lyrics is I make it sad, but I guess that one is particularly sad.
I'm interested that sense that you're speaking about there, that desire to kind of have a slightly simpler style of living and staying in the one place. When that did happen over lockdown, how did you find it?
Yeah, really good. I mean, especially after 2 or 3 weeks of it, after you realise that you can't just get pissed every night and watch Sopranos, even though that was a good time, and still continue to watch Sopranos. But yeah, once it was like, okay, I need to kind of start exercising and getting on with things. That was, it was for me personally, it was like a catalyst to kind of concentrate on putting some positive things into my lifestyle that I wouldn't usually maybe have the time or inclination to shoehorn in. Although it was weird not seeing friends and like having all of these options socially, there is something to be said for just taking some time away from that, and there is a lot of anxiety that comes with the social aspects of life and like going out and all of that stuff. And yeah, I think for a lot of people, including me, like having a bit of a break from that was a good thing.
It gave us like an opportunity to reflect upon that as well and think a lot about things. And then now that we are starting to return, we can kind of carry those things that we've learned from it back into it, and it makes it easier now, even when we are returning to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely for a lot of people been quite a bit of a experience of like realization about, like you say, things that can be carried into whatever this new era holds.
Did those positive things you speaking about exercise and stuff and other things, did those positive elements that you tried to implement into your life, have they stuck around after, now that we're kind of starting to return?
Yeah, definitely. I just got into running during the lockdown, and that stayed with me. It's now like a part of my routine and something that I enjoy and makes me feel good. Yeah, that's been kind of the main one, I guess. And also just like enjoying just being a bit calmer and not having to have something to do all the time. Yeah, I think there's hopefully some stuff that's been carried over.
I think although we think about it always in exercise and running as something that's really beneficial to our physical health, the effect it has on our mental health as well, just that ability to clear the head.
Absolutely, yeah.
Once you've finished it, it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's all, we're like physical beings, and especially when there's not loads of other stuff to do, just having that kind of that means of exerting and releasing something that's positive and like good for your health. It's just like it's a good feeling.
Same with music though, isn't it? It's a release. It's good, catharsis.
Yeah, totally. It's very, very similar. Well, in one sense at least. Yeah, definitely, it's a release.
You've spoken before about how you always preferred instrumentation. You always found that easier to write compared to lyrics. As a result of what you've done with this album, although you've got the piano there and the melody, the lyrics are a lot more unsure. They're play a lot larger a part in the mix. How did that slight vulnerability affect you when you were working on this? That pressure in a weird kind of way, I guess. Even
though they are higher in the mix, I think certain songs I feel like more lyric led. Like for example, the song "Apology" I think is quite tight lyrically. I guess it's a bit more. I don't know. I guess it's kind of one way you could read the lyrics by themselves and it would kind of make sense. Yeah, I don't think because the lyrics are on show on the rest of them, it means that I'm necessarily like I want to like highlight them necessarily.
I mean, it is still a very melody-driven album.
Yeah, exactly. I guess so. Yeah. I don't think it's changed a lot, but yeah, I get there's no denying that they're more on show, which is arguably not a good thing.
Are there any? I disagree, but
thank you.
Are there any lessons that you've learned from making this record that you feel you'll carry forth? When you move on to working on the new material and future music.
Yeah, probably the whole creation of the thing was quite based around the means that I had to do it at the time. So I'm happy that I managed to do it, and it's turned out the way it has. It's definitely quite a raw album, which I wasn't really thinking of at the time, and like it wasn't like I was going in and fine tuning everything, which is kind of what I wanted. I think maybe looking back on it now, I could have probably been a bit more scrupulous with like vocal takes and things like that, because it's definitely not perfect, but I guess that's kind of part of what makes it nice as well, because I did want it to be this very kind of stripped back thing, that because I guess I was thinking about other albums that I liked that have that sort of setup to them when it's just guitar, like an instrument, whether it's guitar or piano and vocals, and there is something nice about having that intimacy, and then also the way that allows you to hear the imperfections. But maybe looking back, I could have dialed back on the imperfections a little bit.
They're part of the authenticity of the record as well, aren't they? They contribute to that feeling of honesty, which is, I guess, what music's all about.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes you don't want to be too honest, though, do you?